All right. Yeah. So today's class, we are going to. I hope everybody can hear me. I hope I'm clear and it's not breaking up or anything like that. All right. Everybody can hear me, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Then go
So
ahead,
okay,
sir.
without wasting time, let's begin. So up till now we have talked about if statements. We've talked about while loops. We've talked about try and accept in handling errors. If you follow the classes, if you watch the videos, I think you will not have issues with understanding all those concepts. We've we've taken our time to go as deep as we can within the time that we have. So today we are going to be looking at something called functions, functions basically. So for any of us here that are already programmers, we already know what a function is. A function is basically a reusable block of code. It's like a block of code that you can reuse on somewhere else, and it does the same function. It performs the same tasks. Just for example, this print statement is a function, but it's an inbuilt function. So it's very reusable because anytime you call print and put something inside there, it will print that thing out for you. So someone's trying to join the class. Yes. All right. So now we are talking about functions. We just started. So we said what is a function? A function is basically a reusable block of code, or a bunch of statements that are inside a package or a pack or a packet that can be reused to perform the same task multiple times. So that's what a function is. Now, we are going to first start with looking at some inbuilt functions in Python. So, for example, in fact, we've been using functions since, but we just didn't call it, we just didn't refer or treat it specifically. So, anytime you said print, anytime you did the print statement, you call the function that takes some argument. It takes one argument actually. So, or actually, your print can take one and one argument, but it takes an argument and it performs an action on that argument. We'll still talk about what an argument is. Um, so when you call print and you just put a string inside, we already know like hello world kind of stuff. We know what will happen. So it will print out the whatever you put inside the bracket. So that's how a function works. That's basically what it is, a reusable block of code. So to look into some inbuilt functions, I already told you about the print. So remember when we did, let me let someone in. So if you remember well, when we first started, I used to do this type of something to always show you the data type of a particular element or a variable or anything. So where I did the age equals 13, and I now did something like print type, and I now say type what's age. So this type here is an inbuilt function. So as you can see, we are basically combining to say print type age. So this type here is an inbuilt function as well as this print. Um, any argument I pass inside here for the type, it would return this type. What it does is that it returns the data type of whatever I pass into the brackets. So I will be calling these things arguments from now on. Anything I put inside a bracket to a function is called an argument. So, for example, age here is an argument of, we are passing it as an argument to the type function. To the print, we are passing this whole function here as an argument to this function. So these are like inbuilt functions in Python. We'll learn how to build our own functions. But before we start building our own functions, I'll need to introduce you to some like inbuilt functions like the math, like the math library, the random, and then we play around with some for loops. Then we now go into building our own custom functions. Okay, so yeah, you will have to pardon me. I'm not at home, so there might be noise from time to time. Sorry about that. I'm somewhere where there's light. Where there's always light. So yes, yeah. So to begin, I will start with I kind of did some outline here, so I don't forget anything, so nothing skips my mind. So um, the first okay, this Max Hello World now to show you guys. Okay, so now still on inbuilt functions, there's an inbuilt function called max. So what it does, it will basically print out like the maximum value of anything. So let let me try and see what will happen when I say print and I do like this max, and I inside that function I write a string there hello, say hello. So if I print it out, it should return what's the maximum? O. So O is the highest, in the alphabetical order, the highest, alphabet there is O. So it printed out the maximum, which is O, right here on my this thing O. If I said if I said mean here, what will happen is it will print out. Guess what? It should print out A. Yeah, so it printed out A. So you can see max, mean, inbuilt functions. So what else? What else? Yeah, we need to look into there's a so another thing you need to talk about is what a module is. A module. So there are modules, there are libraries. We still need to talk about what they are. So today we'll be using for the purpose of showing you how a particular inbuilt function works. I'll be using the maths library. I'll import the math library. It's an inbuilt library that comes with Python. I'll import it and then I would do use some of the functions inside that library. So um, the word library and module, you can actually in a way almost interuse them because they perform similar actions. So I don't know how if anybody around or if some of the well advanced people here can give us a better description between what a module is and a library and all that kind of stuff. But they're almost similar because you can write your own libraries, you can write your own modules, and yeah, they perform almost the same actions. Just like they contain functions that you can call and use whenever you want, yeah, as far as you've imported it into your code. So for the first example, we're going to use import the maths library. So I will just do here import. So this is how you import modules in Python. Just say import, and since it's an inbuilt module, Python already it comes once you install Python, it comes with it. So just say math, and yeah, that's it. I've imported the math module. So it's going to be brown because I've not used it. So as you can see, it's dim in color. My IDE dimmed it out. It's brown. It's brown. It means I've not used it yet. So um, there are ways of using. So when you want to use there's something Python calls the dot notation, but all these things you get used to them with time. So um, for example, let me try and do something like square root now. So I'll do let me create a variable called let me use my favorite variable called age, and let me say age is 13 or age is 12 now, and I now say math. Let me say math dot square root. So square. So now if I put dots here, it's going to bring out all the things I can do. I can do exponential, I can do degrees, I can do cos, I can do arctan, I can do sine. But what I want to do is I think I want to do square root because it's more straightforward. So let me just type it. Square root. So the variable I want to square. What do I want to square? I want to square this age variable. Alright, someone is trying to join. So now if I run this, nothing will happen because I'm not yet printing it out. So I can now say I can just come here and do print, and that should work. So square root of age, what's the square root of 12? Yeah, 3.4 blah 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 blah. So this is how you use this is how you use some inbuilt functions of the math module or the math library. There are a lot more of things you can do. So if you want to know what you can just once you write math, as far as you've imported, you just write a dot, and your IDE will bring out all the stuff you can do. If you want to do log, let me do let me see log x, so log age. Then it's asking for the base, so base 10. Let me print it and see. Log 12 base 10. The answer is 1.047. Blah, 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 blah. So that's basically how you can use some simple functions, from the modules you import. Okay. You can use this when this is very helpful whenever you are doing formulas and calculations that you do not want to do yourself. You can use this and to do your calculation easily for you. Imagine if there was no math library or the math module. What you have to do is you have to this log you have to figure out how to write it in code by yourself, but someone has already done it for you. So all you need to do is just call the function. So if I look into the library, this log has a block of code that is in charge of performing this action. And I can actually edit it if I want to, but don't do that because you're not it's working. So you get. So yeah, we'll look into it. I was also look into something like the random module. Then I had to write these things down so that I don't put one before the other. So now when we are going to work with the random module, like like you already know, the word random is telling you it generates random numbers for you. So before you can use it as usual, we have to say and import random. Import random. It turns dim because I've not used it. Then now I'll introduce you to something called a for loop. So we already looked at a while loop on Friday for those of us that watched the recording. A while loop basically says the condition while the certain condition is met, perform an action. That's basically what a while loop does. And we said we be like while true, which is forever, perform an action. Now we're going to be using a for loop. So to explain what a for loop is, a for loop is basically an iteration, a loop used to do iteration. So let me break it down for you guys. So imagine we have a carton of indomie or a carton of noodles now, and I now give you a task. All right, I tell you to remove all the noodles from that carton and maybe put it inside a new carton of another carton or something, or a box or somewhere else. Just remove those noodles and put it somewhere else. But that was not all. For every noodle that you remove, I want you to label it, like, or put a tag on that noodle before you transfer it to the storage box where we want it to be permanently. Now, if you listen to what I just said, I said something. For every noodle you remove from the box, perform an action on that noodle. Do something to it before you discard it or whatever. So that's actually what a for loop is. It's basically saying I want to cycle through the elements inside a particular data type or a particular list or whatever. I want to cycle through everything inside it. But as I'm cycling through those things, I want to perform an action on each one. As I'm bringing it out, I perform an action, I keep. I bring it out, I perform an action, I keep. I bring it out, I perform an action, I keep it. So that's what a for loop does. So now I'll be explaining the syntax for you again. So now we are saying for I, right? In I think some of us have played with range before. So normally, if I say for I let me say in range, open bracket, in range 10. For I in range 10, I put my column. I come here and I say print, print what? Print I. So, I think I might have to remove all these things. Right. So for I in range 10, I say for example print I. What do we think is the resultant? So it will print. You see what it's doing? It printed 1 to 9. So a brief explanation of what just happened now. Let me bring this in up like this. A brief explanation of what just happened now. You might be wondering, say, what is this I? What's it doing here? Right? So then let me go back to the Indomie, you know, to the Indomie paradigm I was giving you. So we have a carton of Indomie, and I tell you to perform an action on each Indomie as you are bringing it out. Okay? So now, so what it means is that when you put your hand in the carton and bring out a packet of Indomie to maybe to open it or to label it or to scan it, whatever, as at that moment in time, that Indomie you are holding, you've like stored it in a value, a temporal value. Like this is Indomie number 1. I take Indomie number 1, I do something on it, I drop it, I pick another Indomie, that's Indomie number 2. So in a way, I'm storing the what I call it, let's say the number of the Indomie somewhere as I'm picking them out, even without knowing whether I'm doing it on purpose or not. So as I pick the first Indomie, I know this is the first Indomie I keep. I bring the next Indomie, I know it's the next Indomie I keep. I don't know if everybody knows Indomie, so I'll say noodles, and I keep it. So look at this for loop. It says for I in range 10. So in this range 10 is basically like a box that is full of stuff. It has 10 stuff in it, starting from 0 to 9. Okay, so if you count 0 to 9, that's 1 2 3, it's up to 10. 0 to 9 is actually 10 elements. So when I say range 10, it means I have a box, and inside that box are 10 elements starting from 0 to it stops at 9. So what I now want to do is I want to print all those elements out. Okay, but how do I do it? So I said, okay, for each element I pick out of this box, store that value inside I and then print I out. That's basically what he's saying. So if I pick 1, if I pick 0, store it in I, print I, you get 0. When I pick 1, store it in I, print I, you get 1. When I pick 2, pick out 2, store it here temporarily, then print it out, replace the whatever that was in I before, so I will no longer be 2, it will now be 3. So each time as I'm cycling through, this variable is updating itself as it's going through the list or the range until it reaches the last element, then it will stop. That's basically how a for loop works, right? Yes, it's easy to understand on a basic level of how for loop works and all. So I think with that explanation, I think I was able to kill the working principle around the for loop generally. So you know what I is, you know what the range 10 is, and how it works. Okay, so now we want to generate random numbers. Don't just so if you can look at these numbers now, they are like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what if I want to do randomly, like I want to randomly pick Indomie from the bag? I don't want to pick it sequentially. So we can now import the random. Do like import random. I think I already imported random up. So, okay, import random. And then now, so remember this box has 10 things inside. I will say for each thing.
Have you talked about importing? Sorry.
Yes, I did a brief. But I mean, this is not today's topic is not really important. Today's topic is function, but I just use this as so we'll still later do importing like as a topic, like this you get.
Okay.
So now for I in range 10, we want to now use this random because there are some functions inside this random library or random module that we want to use. There are some functions inside there we want to use. So what do I do? How do I use those functions? I can say let me see. I can say print, right? I want to print it out. Print random, because remember how we did the math. So you call the module name, then when you write a dot, it brings out everything you can do, abstract, choice, blah blah blah. But we're interested in this rand. What we're interested in is rand int. So rand int means random integer. So we now specify. So we specify print a random integer from maybe from 1 to maybe to 10. Let me say from 0 to 10. From 0 to 10. So if I run this now, watch what will happen. So it did random integers. It will print 10 random integers between 0 and 10. So yeah, that's how you use how you're able to, so we use these are inbuilt functions that we are using currently. You will soon start. So the next thing we are going to now do now is we are going to start writing our own functions, personal functions that are dear to our hearts personally. So yeah, you don't bother yourself too much about what's going on here for now, because we'll still treat it later as a topic of its own. I just wanted to show you some inbuilt functions and how they work. Okay, all right. So we're almost halfway through the class. That's 30 minutes mark. Right, the 24 minutes.
I think Bekezela wants to say something.
Okay, please feel free.
Yeah. It was to be from 0 to 9 in the bracket.
Is it the range?
A random int, is it not supposed to be 0 to 9 instead of 0 to 10?
It can actually be it can be 0 to anything. It can be, in fact, let me debunk any doubts. It can be anything it can be 10 to, it can be 90 to 90 to 120. And if I run it, so it will generate.
So your I there, it's got 10 elements, right?
Yeah, so what this means, yeah. So means that whatever everything inside here, this statement is going to run 10 times. Okay.
Oh, 10 times.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for I in range 10, perform. Remember, this 10 is the box. So I remember I told you that we have a box of noodles, and this is the number of noodles inside, and then this is the action I want to perform on any noodle I pick out. So I pick a noodle, I perform an action. So that's what is happening here. So this is the amount of stuff, or the amount of times
That's all right.
the statement will run. Okay. So yes, we are moving into building our own functions now, and to start with it, yeah, okay. So you can already start. So now in Python, whenever you want to do a function, or whenever you want to create a function, it's actually called defining a function. So in Python, you define functions. You tell, okay, so when you mean define, it means like you are telling Python this is a function that I have created. So that's why they use define. They're like defining a function to Python. It's like this function exists here. So now to do it, the first keyword you use is the def keyword. Then your function name. So let me just call it first. Let me just call it func. Let me just call it. What should I call this function now? Speak. All right. Let me call it speak. Okay. And I will then put a bracket like this and like here. All right. So now I can write some code inside here, like for example print hello world, hello, or just print hello. So if I run my code, nothing will happen. Actually, nothing will happen. Nothing. The reason is I have defined a function, but I have not called it. I have not used it. Like I'm not. So if I want to now use a function that I just defined, this function I just defined, and if I want to use, all I need to now do is I should just say speak. And if I now run it, watch what will happen. Hello, are you seeing? So if I run it 5 times, if I say speak, sorry, if I say speak here, Control C, and I do like speak, okay, watch what happens. Hello. So now I've created a function that says hello. So anytime I want to say hello in my code, I can just call this speak function here. Someone just joined, or someone trying to join. Alright. So anytime I want to say hello, or I want to perform whatever massive amount of code I've written under this function, all I need to do is to call the function. I call the function and it will run whatever is inside it. So remember I told you, when I say when we studied, a function is a block of code that is a container that contains a particular syntax or a particular code that is reusable. So anytime we want to reuse, is a very functions are made to be reusable code. So anytime you have code that you use all the time, it's just good you write it in a function and then you call that function whenever you need it. So a function is like a toolbox with maybe a spanner, a screwdriver, and so instead of anytime you need a spanner, you build a spanner from scratch. Build a spanner once and then keep using it anytime you need it. Basically, that's what a function does for you. So with functions, your code can become more interactive and easier to write. In fact, there's a form of programming called functional programming, whereby you break down your tasks into functions and you write those functions. Then after writing your functions, you can now write your syntax and put those functions inside there, and everything is working seamlessly. So it's one of my favorite ways of programming. Someone's raising their hand. Peter. Hello? Peter, please, if you want to ask a question, just unmute your mic and feel free.
Hello?
I want to ask a question.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you said that the function can be reused.
Yes.
So I want to ask that, like, for example now, let's say you created a function on a particular file. Let's say this file now, you created a function there. And you
Yes.
want to reuse it. How are you going to reuse it? Like, are you still going to recreate the same function in that file? Or
No.
can you call, like, I don't know, I
So
don't understand, like,
hey, if
you know, for when you want to call the
yes,
math
I did import
function,
maths. So now, so the way you can do that is where you do, for example, if I wrote a function in a particular file or in a particular, like for example, this is launch.py, I wrote a function in another file. All I need to do is import the file where the function is, import it into your code, and then you can now call, because if you just the way we did when we were doing for example, let me see. So we did do like import, and then we did like maths. Yeah, this maths is actually a file in is a module that Python installed for you. Like, it's a file somewhere in your laptop that contains functions. Okay, so all I needed to do is import it. So if you have code you've written down, you have a lot of functions in that code. All you need to do is import that code. Let me say import. Can I import? Okay, I cannot import this one here. So all you need to do is import that code into the way you're working on, and then you can call the functions out of it by just doing like the way we did for the math. Like do like go back.
Okay, I understand. Like, how will you like store it on the? You said this one is already stored on
Okay, so
the Python.
basically
Like
you can
with the computer, how will you do that?
we'll get there. We'll get there. That's some, but it's not hard. It's actually not very difficult. Is you just all you need to make sure that the file is in the same directory as the code you are working on, and then you can import it into your code.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it.
In the same folder, kind of.
Yes, in the same directory folder. Yes, they are in the same working environment. Like, let me pull up, I will have pulled up my own here. For example,
Thank you, sir.
okay, yeah, one second.
Hello, my question.
Yes, Mr. Begzara.
My question is, when you're defining your function there, I see, we can see that def is the beginning of your function.
Yes.
How come there is no termination end of the function? It's just open. I know some programs, they write the end of a function, like say end function.
Oh,
This one is just,
well, is the way Python.
end.
So is I understand your question. So, well,
Like end.
sometimes if you want to end your function, you see some functions end
Are you
with,
listening to me?
yes, I'm hearing you. So sometimes you can end a function like this, return, I don't know, something like you can return something
Oh, I
to,
understand.
but not all the time, Sha.
But you can write two functions next to each other, only just beginning with def. It's not a problem.
Yes, it's not a problem. Just make I can write on that one here right now. Dev talk. I can write on that one dev talk,
Okay.
and I can put whatever I want to put inside there. And, it works. It works fine.
All right. I see.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
So
No, that's fine. Thanks.
yes. So concerning the import question, I was trying it now. So look at import. So if you look at my directories here, you can see there is a main.py. So I can actually import it into this code right now. So import main, and that's this guy here, this main. So I can import it. So I can import launch. Okay, I'm on launch. So let me try and import what else. Okay, there's no other Python file here. Okay, but yeah. So that's it on the importing stuff. It's very straightforward to do. So we've started writing our own functions. We've started defining our own functions. But this is still very straightforward and very simple. This is like just a function that is printing hello. So what if so let us now create a scenario. Because after this function, after we've done functions, after I've talked about functions, I think I'll talk about lists, and then I'll give you a project, an assignment to build a voting system. It's like a cliche project. So with lists and functions, build a very simple system where people can just come and vote and all. It's a bit complex, but yeah. So I think I will talk about dictionaries, list and functions. But okay, no problem. When we get there, we'll cross the bridge. So now let's go into some more advanced things on functions. So let's go a bit deeper. So now we know how to create our function. So let us create a function that, let Let's use a function, not even let's use a function. Let's take input, let's use if statement, let's use a function, let's perform an action with it and see how it works. So because it's not good to just show you the beginning part and skip to something else. So now let's create a scenario, a problem, an issue is a problem. Um okay, let's build a simple calculator with functions. Okay, simple calculator. So we're going to so now the first question you are going to ask, this is why I like functional programming. All you need to do is to ask the person, so what are the things that this thing you want me to build can perform? What can it do? They say, okay, the calculator can add, subtract, divide, multiply, and maybe let's do the fourth: add, subtract, divide, and multiply, right? So you say, okay, oh, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a first thing I'm going to do is write a function to perform these four actions, and then the rest should be very simple to do. So the first thing we do is we create def, and we call it maybe def add, and I'll put my this, and I will put my this, and I'll put this. So inside def add, oh, before I go into this, we need to talk about arguments. And here now, this is where arguments come in. So what is an argument? An argument, okay, is or not is, or how is it? Arguments are parameters that you pass to your function. Okay, don't worry, it's not like crazy out of this world something. So when I mean parameters that you pass to your function, it simply means that your function can actually take some parameters like as you are calling it. So let me get the best way to paint this scenario now. Okay, you want to call a function, but before you can call it, you need to pass something into that function. All right, yes, exactly. So now I already told you guys that a function is a block of code that performs an action that is repetitive, right? So imagine I want to create a function that adds two numbers, right? And maybe the numbers I want to add are what? A plus B, for example. Okay, now, but there's a problem. How does the function know what A plus B is? Like the function might, you said def add and you said A plus B, but if I call this function, if Python is already throwing an error for me telling me that unresolved reference A, unresolved reference B, so it means this function doesn't really know what you just wrote inside here because you didn't tell it what A is, what B is. In fact, the function, so what the function is expecting now is since you said A plus B, it means whenever you call me, you should tell me what A is and what B is so that I can add it. More like saying you tell a child to, let me see, to go and buy something for you, and then you don't tell them what to buy. It's like weird. You like just call you, Chidibem, come here, go and buy something, and he's like, what should I buy? Something, you know. So what I just did here, I said add something, add A and B. So the first is like, what is A and B? Because these are supposed to be variables. So what value is inside here? It doesn't know. So how do I tell it the values of A and B? Now that's where parameters come in. So I'm going to specify two parameters inside this function now, A and B. So anytime I call this, yes.
And just unmute your mic.
Yeah, please unmute your mic. And ask your question, please.
I think if you continue, maybe it's not.
Okay.
Just continue.
So yes, I was saying now, whenever you want a function to perform an operation, you need to give it the raw materials to do that. So remember I said the function is okay. Let's imagine a function is like a child. So you call a child and you tell him go to the market and buy something, and the child is like, what should I buy? You say milk and Milo. Okay, and he's like, okay, milk and Milo. So the child goes to the market and buys milk and Milo and comes back. So when we created a function and said add or whatever we want it to be doing. So now if we don't pass anything inside this place and we just say A plus B, the function is confused because A plus B are supposed to be variables, but a variable without a value, doesn't make any sense. If there's a variable, there needs to be a value that can be stored inside it. So, and how is the function going to store values inside this variable? You need to provide a means of it doing that. So you now pass parameters to that function a comma b. What these parameters mean is that it is a must. It becomes like a must that anytime you call this function you must provide two parameters and then it will add those two parameters. So let me come here and do print. Let me print and let me pass a and b inside that print statement now. So print. So now, oh sorry, how did I do? I was supposed to print once. I don't know, sorry. Inside here I'll pass a plus b. Alright. So okay. Now if I want to remember to use a function that you must call the function. So to call this function I'll come here and I'll call it, I'll just say add and I'll open a bracket and I'll specify the numbers I want to add. Very important. Remember you said this function adds two numbers. So whenever you call the function, you must tell it those numbers. So what will happen is 2 will replace A and 5 will replace B. So those are arguments. That's why they are called arguments. So you must pass if your function is going to perform an operation with some with variables, you must pass those variables into that function as an argument. And yeah, you can, in more complex cases, you can pass a function into a function as an argument. One function can take another function as an argument, but that's for more complex. For now, let's get the basics down. So if I call this function now, it should do 2 plus 5. Yeah, it did it. 2 plus 5 is 7. So anytime I want to add this, in fact, this is basically how the addition in Python actually in a way works. So anytime I want to add two numbers and I call this add function and I write maybe 25 90,000 whatever, it will add it and print out the results. So it's add this and print out the results for you. It will add these two. If I pass in more than two arguments, it will throw an error telling me yeah. He said add takes two positional arguments but three we are given. If I want to fix that error, all I need to do is come here and specify the third argument, maybe C, and I now come here and say maybe A plus B minus C. Then if I run it, what's going on? Okay, if I run it now, so here, remember I made it. So to one of the ways to stop this error is by is by providing keyword arguments. Keyword. So like custom made values that if I don't provide an argument, use this. That's what basically keyword arguments. That's what they are. So let me give an example. Where is my so here. So if I do not provide C will be equal to 25. 20. So now what I just did is if I call this function without providing C, automatically or by default C will become 20. Okay, so if I run it now, it won't throw this error anymore and it will run perfectly fine. So yeah, that is what an argument is to a function. That is how you use them. And to define keyword arguments, they are very useful for you if you don't want your code to be crashing up and down. It's good to so usually you specify it as default, maybe 0, like maybe b0 so equal to 0 and equal to 0. So what this will do is if the user doesn't pass any argument to your function won't crash. Instead, it will take this as default. These are default arguments it will use and run this. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's basically how you know that's what an argument is, and that's how you use them in functions. So back to our problem. I'll make this a bit quicker. So yes, our calculator. We are building a calculator. So let's make it snappy. We're almost out of time. So add. So we are doing a function that adds two numbers. So let's call it A, B, and down here. So tell them that add, then print what A plus B. Print A plus B. Come down here. Create another function def. Let's call it subtract. So just say sub for me. We'll do the same A and B, A comma B, out the answer still. Print out sorry, print out a minus minus b, and let me just copy this, make my coding faster. V, that's for add, subtract, multiply, and one for divide. So I'll change this to mult, change this to star, and change this to div. I hope there's no div keyword, and change this to divide. Alright, so we have functions for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So how do we use them? So to use it, all you need to do is call it. Okay, but now we're going to toggle it together with user input. So now we're going to ask the user for an input and ask them to enter if what they want to do. So we'll now do something like this. We're going to now do an input statement. We come here and we say, so what do we need to store it as? Let's say user, let's say action. Right? Action equals let me see. So we'll give them a prompt, which is let's use a string. So let's just say input, and the prompt is what? Perform. What do you want to do? So what? For formatting's sake, I'll use a new line, escape new line, and I'll write here. I'll write maybe addition. Okay, addition. So I'll come here. I'll tell them. So to add, press. Let me say A for add, or just A. So in brackets. So bracket open bracket close here. A. Add what are they doing? Another new line, escape new line, so escape new line, b2. What is for subtraction? Let's say s to subtract 60% time, sorry, new line, multiply. So multiply should be m. So multiply. I think I should go to take this code to the next time. Yeah, I take it to the next time, but let me just continue writing this. So x to m to multiply, and finally escape one more new line character. What's to divide d? So brackets. So that's d to divide. Okay. So this is what we are going to be tracking, either A, S, M, or D to divide. So enter your stuff here. So after you've entered their inputs, now since we've defined everything in a function, we don't need to start doing if user enters A, print A times B. We've already everything inside the function. These are just very simple, but you see the use when you are writing a function. We wrote a code once where if in one function contained over 200 lines of code. So imagine you want to perform what is in 200 lines of code, and if, maybe 5 times. You have to be writing that 200 lines of code that 5 times. But if you write it in a function once, you can perform anytime you need to just call the function. So that's what I'll be doing here now. So now I'll just check this simple an if statement to check if action equal what am I checking for? I'm checking for if it's D, so the string. If action is what? A, what should he do? Should he do something? He should do something. Yeah, he should call the function. So I'll just say add here. So you see how add. I missed a very crucial step. So okay, I'll fix that now. A, comma, B. So I forgot to ask the user to enter their A and their B, but all we need to do is to come here and tell them, come here and just say A is equal to enter your first value. Alright, so enter your first value, and we do the same thing for b. Control C, b is equal to enter your second value. B equals enter your second value. Okay, all right, so enter first value, enter second value, then what action you want to perform. So if they say A, perform this, else you can use else if they say if action equals what B, what are you doing? So the B has to be a string. What are you doing here? You are doing something. You do what? If it's B, sorry, not B, it's not B. So S, the action is S. What are we doing? We are subtracting. So sub A, that's sub. That's what I'm typing to do. What am I typing on this? That's sub. I'm trying to rush so we don't sub A comma B. So that's sub A comma B. And we repeat the same action for the rest of the code. So that's V. So else if action is what? M, we multiply. So we call what? We call mult. And pass A and B. Okay, hello, question? Any question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask whether we are not supposed to incontinent the values in like we are giving ANT values, but they are not inputted as string, like we need to incontinent them. Sorry, I'm correct.
I couldn't hear you. Your mic was like breaking up a lot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I wanted to ask about the after defining the definition
Okay.
function. Like we are inputting them as string
Yeah.
rather than integer.
Yes, definitely. So we are using strings now to do our. So here, okay. Oh yes. I was supposed to. Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Yes, that's what you are saying. Yeah, I was supposed to typecast it. So someone is actually paying attention. Thank you. So typecast it here and here too, because we cannot perform some actions on those kind of things. So the only thing that is a string in this code is this guy. I wish I could zoom out. The only thing that is a string here is this one, this input guy, this action. The action is a string because it's just ASM and all. So we are almost done. One more this thing and we are done with. I think we're done with this calculator, simple calculator. So V else is the action is what? The last action there is divide. So if you press D, what do we want to do? We want to call the div function and then pass A and B into it. So now what else is left? So I would have done some try and accept and all those things, more user, no time. So those just if we are done, I'll try and add those things too for error handling. So you usually do error handling after you've done with your code and everything is working, then you start handling errors. So but for now, the most important thing is let it work. Well, I hope it works. Okay, so you say enter your first value. Let me say 7. Enter your second value. Let me make this bigger. Enter your second value. Let me say 8. What action would you like to perform? I would like to add. So I say A and see 15. So now the code works. Okay, it works. The one thing we need to do now is to put inside a while true loop, because if you remember from the former classes we talked about while true, so that the code runs forever and ever and ever. So let me do that now to make it a bit more interactive. So where am I performing my actions? From here to, so don't make the mistake of putting the whole code inside a while true. The only place that I'm putting inside my loop is the place where the action is happening, which is starting from this place. So I'm going to indent it by 1 mark, and I'll come here, go back by 1, and I'll say while, then space, then true. So everything now is under this while. So if you look at the while true, everything is under the while true. So yeah, up to this point, the whole our actions are, so look, these are our functions. Then these are where we use those functions inside this. Sorry, I'm scrolling too much. These are where we use those functions inside here. So this is a function for add, for subtract, for multiply, and for divide. So you see, we don't need to start specifying, start doing it by adding. We have done it already. So anytime we need to do, just call the function. So now let me run this code one more time, and I guess we are good to go. Just in the peak of the time. Just in the peak of time. So yeah, enter your first value. Let's say 67. Second value 90. What do I want to do? I want to multiply. So I press M and I hit enter, and it multiplies it. And it asks me to enter my first value again. So just basically a simple calculator that can do addition, subtraction, and division. Addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think it came out well for something that impromptu, and yeah, I'm happy with the way it looks. So I don't know if there are any questions on this calculator that we just did. I think the assignment will be to build your own calculator and add more features to it. Add things like exponential, add raised to power, add, use the math library if you can, do like sine, cos, play around, go online on Google, build your own calculator, add as many functionalities as possible. I only added 4 here. You can add plenty. So it will teach you a lot of things with time, how to use your life. So, but it's good to try these things on your own. So, any questions? Let me handle it before we can call it a day. We covered functions, we covered for loops, and I think we covered, yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask, when you say while true, what are you evaluating there on the while? What is while evaluating?
All right, yes, that gave me a bit of issue too to understand.
True.
It gave me an issue when I first came across it. While true, I mean, like, what does this mean? What does while true mean? So, okay, so now, how do I explain while true for you now? While true is a condition that always returns true. How do I put it? Okay, now let me give you a breakdown of how the while loop actually works. So let me remove this while true here. Let me say I create a variable here called let me create a variable now. Say a string. Let me create a string state. Call it state. Alright, the state of something. So equals to, let me equate it to false, or let me equate it to, okay, let me equate it to false. Let me say state is what? False. Okay. So you need to know that false as it is a value. In Python, true and false are values. Python sees true and false as values, which is basically true is 1, false is 0. Okay. So now state is false, and I come here and I say while state equal what? While state is equal to, well, let me not use false. Let me use a value like 1 or 2. So state is equal to 0. Okay. Now let me do something. While state is less than 10. Okay. While state is less than 10, I want to do what? I want to run this code. So from the little things we've done so far, you can, in a way, if I ask you to guess what would happen. So this is where we are. So this is where we are now, starting from here. So I said state is 0. While state is less than 10, run everything inside here. So you know that 0 is less than 10. So this while says as far as 0 is less than 10, run everything inside here. Okay. So if I run this code, it will actually run exactly the same way the while true worked. So I'll tell you why, and I will explain that while true after I've told you why. So enter first value, even if I press like 77, 99, and maybe A and stuff. See, it still works like the while true. It's still asking to enter the value again. Is it? So the reason is that you see this my keyboard is too sensitive. So if you look here, state is 0, while state is less than 10, run this. State remains 0 forever. We are not changing it. So this condition is going to be true forever, infinitely. Okay. So developers, when they were building, people that wrote Python found out that this comes, you do this because this is actually the normal way to do it. This is the manual way of doing it. You say you create a variable that doesn't change, and then you say why that variable is less than or is equal to a certain value. Since the value will never change, the statement will run forever. But the Python developers are like, well, we use this all the time, so why don't you just create a very short form of doing it? So they now said, since true means like true is 1, true is like if someone says okay, while true, I want to relate it to like real life situations. That's what I'm trying to bring it to. While true, while true, while true, while true. Yes. So true is like yes. True means go, like green. Yes, go. So imagine you are driving and you approach a street light and the color is green. Nobody needs to tell you to keep moving. That's basically what happens there. So when Python sees while true, it's like Python is running systematically, line by line, line by line. When it gets to the while true line, the condition is already a forward condition, which is you are driving your car and you are approaching the traffic light and it's green. So you don't wait and check if immediately you see the green, you are moving. So that's what Python does. It's going, it gets there and it sees while true.
So let me ask, is there any instance where while is not true?
Well, you can say, okay, let me yes, you can actually make while false, but it will still work. Okay, so if you don't want to use while true, okay, let me say he said is there any time when while is not true. So if I write while true now, if I write while true, this is just like I explained, it's basically a go signal, like telling Python when you get here, keep moving, run everything, and run it forever. So if you don't want to use a while true, let's say you want this code to run 5 times. What I'll do.
Maybe the question to ask is what if we just leave it? Any problem?
What?
Then problem we leave the while out.
If you leave the while true out,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
understand.
run.
Oh, it will run, but it will not run forever. If I remove the true, in fact, how is it that true returns? Taiwo, maybe Taiwo will be able to. Taiwo. Is Taiwo still here? Maybe he can give a better explanation than I am doing. Let me check. She's still in the class. Taiwo is still in the class, yes. Taiwo. Is he with us? I don't think he's with us. Okay, I don't think Taiwo is with us. So it's just me. I might need to explain this while true in a more understandable way. Okay. So alright, let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how a while loop actually really works. Then I'll put the while true there and maybe you will understand. So let me create a counter. Let me turn this into a counter. Okay. So the counter is at 0. And what I want to now do is while the counter value is less than what? Let me say less than 5. Alright. Run this code. Then at the end of this code, right here, where the code ended, I will increment counter by 1. Not even at the end. I can increment it anywhere. I can increment it in the beginning. But usually I prefer doing it at the end here. So here, right here, what I'll do is I'll say counter equal to counter plus 1. So now what is going to happen in this code now is that when Python gets here, while counter is less than 5, it will run this. When it gets here, it will increment counter by 1. This code will run only 5 times. The moment counter becomes equal to 5 or greater than 5, the code will stop running. So if we are to try it now, if I rerun it, stop and rerun, and enter your value, let me, it means I have to run this like 5 times, so just give me a sec. 90, that's 1. Count with me. 23, 55, and let me see A again. That's 2. Run it again. 23, 45, A, 3, 12, 45, 34, A, 4. This is the last time.